Season 3 of the Press Box. I am Lieutenant Governor Tregenza Roach, your host for this episode. When Governor Albert Bryan Jr. and I entered office, we began the hard work of stabilizing the economy and building trust in government. We have come a long way since then. This week, Governor Bryan signed off on the fiscal year 2023 balanced budget based on actual revenues after ending fiscal year 2022 with a surplus. Joining me in the conversation about the government's financial health and progress are three members of the administration's financial team: Finance Commissioner Busedi Bruce, Office of Management and Budget Director Jennifer O'Neill, and Internal Revenue Director Joel Lee. Welcome. Before we begin our conversation, however, let us take a look at Governor Bryan's recent announcement on income tax refunds.
It also means that we are now paying refunds in the same year that they were filed. We are on track to issue refunds to everyone that filed by the April 15th filing deadline this year. Welcome. Commissioner Bruce, it's always good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Good. And Director Lee, welcome to the show. Thank you. Director O'Neill, how are you doing?
I am well, thanks. Good to be here.
I think we go back the longest in these positions.
We do.
Yeah, even when I was at Education, right? Or at the Senate?
At the Senate, actually.
Okay,
at the Senate.
good.
In 2014.
2014. So we want to have a conversation about the government's financial health, but we want people to understand the terms that we're using. We want to speak to the person in their home just so that they could be sure that they're on the same path with us and they understand about the government's fiscal health, because that's critical. So if you could share with the audience just a little about your role on the financial team, and we'll begin with Commissioner Bruce.
So as the Commissioner of Finance, I am tasked with leading the agency that cuts all the checks. So we make all the vendor payments, we pay out the tax returns, but we also account for the revenue. So every agency, every government agency that you go into and you make a payment for anything, it's recorded in our ERP system. The deposit is made. My team does the reconciliations for that. And so we account for the money coming in, and then we account for the money going out. My agency also leads the effort on the audit, and we are close to wrapping up the 2020 audit, and we need that. So what an audit does is just gives you the areas to focus on. If there are any areas that we need to address, what an audit does is say, you know, you are following the rules, and so you're doing okay. You're following the rules, but you could do a little bit better. Okay. And then so an audit is not to highlight everything that's wrong. It's actually to help you to account for your finances better. Okay.
And just to be clear, the audit that you're speaking about is not particular to the finance department, but the overall government of the Virgin Islands, correct?
Yes, it is for the overall government of the Virgin Islands.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yeah.
Director Lee, you are the man of the hour. People are talking about tax returns and tax refunds. So I didn't get any, but nonetheless, tell us about your shop.
Yes. Your role. That's very reassuring to hear. I am Director Lee, and I am responsible for the Bureau of Internal Revenue. We are the main tax collecting agency of the government. My role traditionally has been tax collector. That means I'm not quite necessarily everybody's friend because of the nature of the role. But the good news is that for the last few years, especially during COVID, we were tasked with distributing a lot of money, stimulus, and with this administration's goal of catching up refunds, that's been a very big boost to our local economy as well. You know, so that's really a good thing, especially considering the hardship that we endured during COVID.
Sure.
And you know, the super good news is we're caught up. We are now paying 2021 returns that were filed this year through February, you know. So going forward, you know, we spent a lot of these last 4 years doing a lot of cleanup of some government stuff that we inherited, and we project for the next 4 to really be able to do some building and growing of our territory. But in a nutshell, that's pretty much what I do. I enforce the tax laws by collecting and process refunds that we distribute to the population.
Thank you for that. And we're going to have some very specific, questions about what you've shared with us.
Okay.
But we'll come back to you. Very often you hear with the lady sitting to my left, my both fingers snap, so sometimes I don't know which one is which. That the buck stops here. I often hear that about you, Director O'Neill. Please tell us a little about the Office of Management and Budget.
Yeah, so OMB is, I call it the octopus with all the tentacles spreading across the government to all 26 plus agencies, departments and agencies that we interact with. We are the entity that is responsible for putting the budget together and administering the budget once it is approved throughout the year. We do the weekly cash flow report, so we always know where we are. That's what Director Lee has. We have those conversations as to how much can we afford to pay out in refunds at any given point. So he gets that figure, and he gets that file, and we make it happen, and which has helped us to get caught up. But yeah, OMB is also responsible for all of the federal grants. We monitor and manage or administer all of the federal grants in the territory. And our biggest task now is ARPA. Everything American Rescue Plan Act related, all of the funding, all $547 million that we have received is all being administered through the Office of Management and Budget. So we have a number of different areas that we have tackled. We have a compliance area. We have the third-party fiduciary side. We have a unit that mimics them. So, we are trying to get out of third-party oversight for the U.S. Department of Education funds. And we also have the administration and operations, federal grants, of course, and the budget unit. So we do a lot. As the lead for the governor's financial team, it is my role to pull everybody together and make sure that the governor's initiatives are carried out, our revenues are being collected. We do monthly. We do monthly revenue meetings and now to see where departments are. As we move forward, we're just trying to figure out and how we can make that more a process that is more seamless in the revenue collections. And, your agency is critical to that as well.
Sure. I was going to share that.
Yeah, I know.
Because in the introduction, I said we're joined by 3 members of the financial team. The Office of the Lieutenant Governor is the second highest generator of revenue for the government of the Virgin Islands. We're second only to the Bureau of Internal Revenue. And so the tax assessor and the tax collector both serve as members of the team. This year, we contributed close to $160 million to the general fund of the government. So usually the tax assessor and the tax collector are out representing me somewhere. So today I'm going to represent them and talk about how their contribution is so significant.
Absolutely.
But Bosedi Bruce, you are I love saying your name in full. It's one of those names like Tregenza Roach,
That's right.
So unusual and different. I know it's West African. Is it West?
Nigerian.
Nigeria.
Yeah.
And you're the newest member to the financial team. So tell us a little about the experience of being, is that what they say, like the newest kid on the block or something like that?
Right. So it's been a steep learning curve. So I've been on the job about 17 months now. And the first 12 months was definitely all learning. So I asked a lot of questions. I get a lot of help. The financial team members that have not only been with this administration, but been in government and valuable contributors to the government have really helped me to get acclimated. I have an awesome team at the Department of Finance of hardworking people with a lot of institutional knowledge, and they help me. And of course, I get all the opinions from the people of the Virgin Islands.
There's no shortage of opinions.
No,
huh?
no, no.
Okay.
So they tell me all what they think I should
What
do.
you need to be doing.
And what I
That's
need to
right.
be doing.
And you live on St. John.
And I do live on St. John, so even making that commute is, I get a lot of feedback on the boat and at both docks. And excuse me, Commissioner, and if they're not sure, they'll see me getting in DF1, so then they know, and then
Then they know it's you.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's been a good experience.
Good.
I feel like the governor has put together a really solid team. So I'm proud to be serving with this administration. I'm so happy that he brought me back home. That was very big for me. It's about 50 degrees in Chicago right now.
Okay.
So,
None of us want.
right. But just
reverse.
even before I came back, I'd started to consider how I can use my expertise to give back. So I've always been giving to someone's bottom line. So doing this is, right up my personal goals alley.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
Great. And when you're in these offices, so often people don't think about the fact that you have a life outside of that. And you just recently lost your mom. I know that was a big, big deal. Anybody who loses their mom at any time. And so we just wanted to acknowledge that she was a wonderful person who I was privileged to know for several years. God rest her.
Thank you.
We're going to use this opportunity to go on a short break, and we ask that you stay with us. There's lots of information to come, and we'll be right back. Thank you.
You see, when Tregenza and I asked you for your vote of confidence in 2018, we promised a lot of things, but most importantly, we promised to stabilize the government's finances, bring transparency, and restore the people's trust in their government. We went to work and made good on these promises, and we stabilized the finances of the government and addressed many long-standing obligations like paying off the government's debt owed to WAPA, repaying the 8% cut owed to government employees, bringing solvent the GRS, and getting caught up on outstanding income tax refund payments to Virgin Islands families. It was not easy, and it did not happen overnight, and it didn't happen alone. It took all of us together, and it took meticulous planning and sound budgeting and to making this government's revenue generation operations more efficient so we can collect more. But together, working with our friends in the legislature, Stacey Plaskett, and you, we did it. We brought it together.
Welcome back to the Press Box, and we're here in a conversation about the government's financial health with IRB Director Mr. Joel Lee, Finance Commissioner Bosedi Bruce, and OMB Director Jennifer O'Neill. So we also mentioned in the previous segment that the financial team is rounded out, and there are additional members such as the tax assessor and the tax collector for my office. Now, we're generally taking money from people. So we really are now glad to shift the focus on the other part of the financial team that's paying out money to people. So Director Lee, you're the man of the hour, the money's coming out, the governor just announced we're caught up. And so, you had a conversation out there. It's political, they're just paying the tax return now so they could get the people vote, et cetera, et cetera. Tell us a little bit about how we got to this point. For the benefit of our audience.
I'm glad you brought that up, LT. There's been so much misinformation out there, and I wish I could address all of them, but this forum, I can kind of set the record
it's impossible,
once and for all. We met a mountain, and we simply chipped away, until we got to a point where we were caught up, which we are now. This administration made it a line item budget for refunds, whereas it was always seen as, in the past, whatever we have left over, we'll attribute to refunds. If you don't budget properly, you're not going to have enough left over. And in life, things happen, hurricanes happen, things happen. So unless you actually address it up front, you kind of keep it, in the front of your mind to be dealt with. Just like a electricity bill, just like a salary, just like any of your necessary costs to just operate. So we were fortunate that we gave it that priority, and each year, passed by fiscal year, we knocked it down a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. So the timing works. We're now caught up, and so it was a buildup.
Right.
It didn't happen overnight. It couldn't happen overnight. We didn't have the cash on hand to make it happen.
So in actuality, I think when you're saying the way we addressed it, I think let's make it clear that in 2019 we paid, and in
Right.
2020 and in
Right.
21, et cetera. So it isn't that we've come to 22 and all of a sudden
We have this lump sum of cash.
Exactly, and I think that's important for people to understand.
Yes.
That gradual process of chipping away at this mountain of debt.
And we've become a society where we want everything like now, instant gratification, but certain things you just can't. We're here now because of what we've done in these last 3+ years.
Right. So we're actually at a place, like you said in your opening, that we are paying tax refunds filed this year
Correct.
for 2021.
Yes.
Okay. Now, as a Virgin Islander, as a person who wants to have the best government that we can have, I think for me, the question is, I don't want us to go back. Whether I am the lieutenant governor or whether Albert Bryan is the governor, I don't want us to go back to a place where the people of the Virgin Islands are waiting years for their tax refunds. So in a conversation about the government's fiscal health, let's talk about how we make sure, at least to the extent that we can, that we are never in the place again, that now we are moving forward and we can pay tax returns in the years that they're due. So tell us, Director O'Neill, how do we make sure that we don't go backwards? Because that's what the people want to know. They want to know.
I agree. I mean, and Director Lee said it. What we have done is actually budgeted for this from day one. We came in, the governor had a plan. This is what we want to do. We need to get caught up on these tax refunds. And we made it happen. Every single year we met, we go through. Every Tuesday we have a financial team meeting. We're discussing continuously where we are with our cash, what we're doing with our processes, how we can improve those, and how fast we can get all the payments, not just refunds, vendor payments, et cetera, out as quickly as possible. It has to be included in the budget, which is what the governor has insisted on, and we have made sure that has happened. Every quarter, we know exactly how much needs to be paid at any given point. That number is given. Director Lee does his part and sends it to finance. Finance does their part and gets those checks out. Moving forward, the process has to be the same. Whoever comes in, they're going to have to stick with budgeting. You have to include it. It cannot be an afterthought. That's where we've always run into problems. And now that we've paid all the back owed refunds, it really shouldn't have that problem moving forward unless something, God forbid, happens and there is no funding available. But really, no administration coming in now would have, or after this, would have to face what we faced in 2019 when you came in, Governor Bryan, and you taking over in 2019. There was 2 days.
Yeah,
we were told 2 days of cash on hand, and we were told that we wouldn't even make payroll in February. So, and this was
People
January.
forget those things easily.
Easily.
It's been rough for us to get here. This has been a work in process. We have continued, like Director Lee said, to chip away every single year to get to this point.
Okay, well, thanks for that. Now, a couple of pointed ones. You made me think of a couple of things. So, Directly, if I encounter someone and they say, "Oh, you're out bragging about paying these income tax returns," I haven't gotten mine. What do I tell the people who come to me with that complaint?
Well, they come to me, what you get times 100, trust me. And it's usually the same thing. They filed just recent. You know, we try to honor when you filed. If you file on time, then, you know, your return would have been processed and in the system and ready to go. We're currently in 2022. If you file a 2018 last month, yes, we have paid 2018 returns, but you have to, within yourself, understand you just filed that. That needs to be processed and go through its normal, you know, channels to then, you know, get paid. But I think there's a little bit unreasonableness when that happens. But and I know on the same note, they hear this administration has paid 2018, but you have to be practical in this case. Second thing, because we've caught up, which means we've been paying old refunds, a lot of those addresses are not applicable anymore. People have moved, and they don't come in to change the address.
Okay.
So I think they forget to do that simple step.
Sure.
You know, in their mind, well, I'm living here, I filed my last return timely, but we don't necessarily go and like change your address to your current without you telling us.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So it's an address or a late filing.
Late filing.
Yeah.
So then a related question. They then ask, well, should we even have these addresses? Why aren't we filing electronically? They want to know when that's going to happen so that they get it in their bank account, and it's not about whether they live in the PO box or whatever.
And I'm going to toss it right over to finance because the tax return has a space to put in your direct deposit, you know, banking information, and you know, once again, this administration has made sure that our system now is robust enough to actually process that. And you know.
So Commissioner Bruce, talk a little about that.
So right now, since we're still on manual filing, if everyone would put their routing number and their account number on their tax return, they will get their refund electronically. So we've been encouraging that with vendors for the regular vendor payment process. We have it for payroll. And with your tax return, if you put, I'll say it again, your routing number, your account number on there, you will get your refund electronically. Then we don't have to worry about the address. It is better cash management for us also. So as we talk about our fiscal responsibilities, if once we improve our systems, like, you know, even stuff like this where we're telling the community, put your banking details on there. You know, IRB is very strict with their rules. Like, I can't even see their files. We don't have access to the same email servers or anything. So your information is safe and secure. And it comes over to the Department of Finance. And we pay electronically.
So I'm one of those persons who hates, like, somebody tell me I can do something and then I try to do it and then I need a form. So once you put that information on the return, you don't have to go get some authorization signed with the bank that says they can deposit.
No.
Once that's done.
No, what you do need to be aware of, though, is that if you close that account, or there was a typo on there or something, that's where the error would come in.
That's where problems come.
Because we do have, what I didn't mention before is that we, of course, finance processes payroll, but one of the issues that we have often is people change their accounts. They close their accounts, or maybe they, for whatever reason, and then they don't let us know. So communication both ways is the key.
So now, you've paid people's refunds. Both you and Director O'Neill mentioned payments to vendors, and that I worked in the Department of Education, and headaches galore for persons who do business with the government and not getting paid. Are we current with payments to vendors, or can you speak to us about how we've tried to be current with that the same way that we're discharging the income tax responsibility?
Right. So one of the things we are doing with the Department of Finance, since we hold the ERP, which is the official accounting software for the government of the Virgin Islands, we have started doing training classes with all of the fiscal officers in all of the agencies, and to get them better trained up on processing cash receipts and payables. So all in all, I think I have been the lucky commissioner to not have 2 days worth of cash and always have to, juggle. We are hoping to be in a better place. And so training and education of all of the GVI employees helps with that process. We all know that there's, it's hard to hire people, it's hard to keep people on these days. So we're doing constant training so that we have people ready to process. But everyone is very helpful. They're all willing to help, and so we try to get them out there.
We're going to come back to that human, which I like to call human capital issue, when we speak in the other segments. But for now, we're going to take another break. Please continue to stay with us because this is a wonderful show, and you're going to have a lot of information that you need to hear.
Mama, I'm really scared.
Don't be scared. Remember, we're prepared. We have an emergency plan.
Be prepared for hurricane season. Visit doh.vi.gov for more info.
The U.S. Virgin Islands are in a region with high levels of vulnerability and threats for tsunamis. Here's some tips you should know. Listen for the sirens. It is important to understand the difference between an advisory, a watch, a warning, and an information statement.
If you're in a coastal zone area and notice a dramatic recession in water from the shoreline, move inland immediately and do not return until officials say it's safe to do so.
A tsunami can happen at any given moment, often without notice. Know your map and the nearest evacuation route and stay in the know.
Stay informed, stay prepared, and stay vigilant. Visit Vitema's website at vitema.vi.gov for more preparedness tips.
The more we know, the more we grow.
Welcome back to the Press Box. Again, we're joined, for those of you who weren't with us, we're joined by 3 financial experts from the government of the Virgin Islands financial team, Director Lee of IRB, Commissioner Bruce of the Department of Finance, and Director O'Neill of the Office of Management and Budget. And just before we took a break, we were talking about tax refunds, and we wanted to delve a little bit further and make sure people understand the question of not just getting how you get paid electronically, but how you file. People are talking about the ease of filing online their tax return. So where are we with that, Director?
Well, you know, the premise how we got to a point where we could actually have the discussion, you know, it was important for us to make sure we kind of got the refunds caught up, you know, because as you can imagine, doing an online filing process would require a lot of time and interaction and questions with the software guy, but we didn't want that to detract from catching refunds up. So now that we're caught up, our goal now is to get the online platform in place. We have been successful in getting a contractor who is actually coding the software right now. We have a rollout date of January, and that's for income tax. And you have to understand, you know, the income tax, most folks have a simple one, but we have to be able to accommodate someone that has, I don't want to say hundreds, but tens of pages of schedules that go with it. So we can't just say, yeah, we'll have it when you know, and even though it may be a handful of people that maximize that software online filing platform to accommodate all those pages, we still need to have it. We really don't want to say you can file, but you can't. You can file, you can't. Okay. So it has to be robust enough to handle that. And we have a target date of January of 23. But this month, we're hoping to roll out our gross receipts online platform, which is a big filing requirement of the business community. The last piece that we're being very sensitive about is making sure that payment module works and is secure. You know, we were able to build the website and do all of the things we need to do to actually process a return, but the payment piece, especially in this age of identity theft and all of that, we really don't want to risk exposing someone's payment to be, you know, God forbid they wake up the next day and they say my bank account, what happened? The only thing I remember is paying gross receipts to IRB. Something must have happened.
But you know, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because everywhere I traveled, the conversation with other lieutenant governors, the conversations at the National Insurance Association of Insurance Commissioners is about this cybersecurity. And you're talking about breach of financial information. They're talking about breaches of people's health information. And so we just really have to know that as we go more and more online, there are also consequences, you know, like those. But I just wanted to be clear. So when you say a rollout, you say a rollout of January 2023.
We're hoping to have a site up where people can file online.
Okay. So by the time you file your 2023 return for 22, it's very possible you'll be doing
The team wanted to be aggressive and to, you know, try to include 21, but I told them to just focus on the 22 tax returns, because I don't want the few of the 21s, we'll deal with those manually as they come in, because, you know, most have been filed manually now, but we want them to focus on the 22.
Thank you, appreciate that. And I wanted to come back to you, Director O'Neill, because I think it's important that people get an understanding of how our fiscal health has changed, because the conversation out there might not necessarily match the reality. Because I do remember when Finance Commissioner Collins sat in the place of Commissioner Bruce and I was in the legislature, that we'd be like, we have 2 days of cash on hand, 3 days of cash on hand. I don't remember times when the numbers were in multiple digits. I don't remember that. Now, at the same time, those of us sitting here might understand what that means. What should that mean? Help the person out there think about what it means to have 2 or 3 days of cash at hand and how that's different to where we are now.
Right. So the average that we use for 1 day is $2.8 million. So when you hear that we only have 2 days of cash, you're talking about $5.6 million that you have.
And
That clearly cannot pay
tell us again,
anything.
what's the government's payroll?
On average, and it actually has gone up a little bit now, but we're at $20 million every 2 weeks. $20 million every 2 weeks, and we have 2 days of cash. Clearly, we cannot make payroll at $20 million. So yes, the cash changes every single day, but if there isn't a concerted effort to collect revenues by any means to get the revenue up, we will continue to have those single-digit days. Now, for us, this administration has been lucky since 2019 when we came and met 2 days. We have not gone back to that. We have had in excess at times of 60 days of cash on hand. I think recently we are down a little bit because it was, summer months, which is typically our slow time in the year. We are around 15, 16 days of cash on hand at our lowest point. We're pushing to continue to have the double-digit, and I mean high double-digit days of cash on hand. We are not going back to those single-digit days. Again, $2.8 million is 1 day. So you want to make sure that you can, at minimum, make payroll and do everything else that you have.
So good. Thank you for that explanation, because they're like these arguments. So some people will say we're using federal dollars to pay the tax refunds. And then they're thinking, okay, there was COVID and we didn't have cruise ships and blah, blah, blah. How did government revenues stay in a place of stability to where we can afford to manage our expenses? So talk to us about the realities of COVID and what happened to us during that time that helped us still maintain the fiscal health of the government.
Yeah, it actually was very interesting to see that, even during COVID, our revenues have continued to grow. We are actually collecting more revenues now than we have ever collected in the history of the Virgin Islands. So the issue, or what we saw, was that a lot of people back in 2020 when COVID hit, and we were still struggling to get that $60 million line of credit from the 2 banks that we ended up not having to use, thankfully. It was so bad. Businesses put ads in the paper asking people to come in to Direct to Lee and make those payments so that we, the government, could have cash and be able to make payroll. Since that time, there's been a number of projects that have been funded through FEMA and ARPA dollars as well. We're collecting gross receipts on that. We're collecting increased income taxes off of those projects. More people are working. As people went back to work from, even during COVID, there were still a number of projects happening. Remember, construction was still a thing that was not shut down, and people were still able to do that. So we still have those revenues coming in specifically from those projects. And then we had all the stimulus checks. Those stimulus checks, as people spent them, they went to restaurants, they did all these different things that kept us going as well.
So directly, I saw you're shaking your head in agreement.
Stimulus checks is interesting because all U.S. citizens got it, even on the mainland. And a lot of them spent their money coming down here.
Exactly.
Flights were cheap because the COVID phenomenon of, not too many people traveling. But, the wonderfulness of how we managed COVID allowed a lot of folks to see the VI as a, preferred destination. So hotels were busy, restaurants were booked, and there was tourists coming down in an age, and COVID also facilitated online remote working. So I couldn't even get a flight sometimes.
Exactly.
Folks are working at home and they were using the stimulus that they got on the mainland. So it was a perfect storm that benefited us.
Right.
Yes.
So they were bringing their stimulus dollars to us as well.
Exactly.
Commissioner Bruce, any thoughts on?
No, it's the same thing. I mean, like you said, I'm from St. John. The beaches were full, the hotels were full, the restaurants were full. I feel like now if there is a a person here that is not working, they just don't want to because we have all the projects, the hospitals need staff, all of our agencies need staff, we need financial services staff, and but so we're hoping to attract some people down and
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, you know, directly, you made me think of something, and I think it was triggered by something Director O'Neill said about the imploring people to pay. Because there's sometimes this narrative that not everybody pays their fair share, that maybe these villas that are operating don't pay their fair share, et cetera, et cetera. Do you hear that conversation?
Yeah,
and is
you
there...
know, at the end of the day, the income tax plan is voluntary. It's voluntary. You know, we have an audit staff who selectively picks and chooses, you know, and randomly, but we can't audit everybody. That's just a reality. That's the same case on the mainland. So, you know, once again, it's a staffing issue. Like we're having, if I have more staff, more availability, you know, it's easy to say, yeah, I have money to pay you, but if you're not here, I would love to have you, you know, so it's the catch-22 of what I do.
So it's an honor system until.
Until. And I'll go with a villa scenario that I tell people. A villa is owned by someone who lives in New York. This is their summer vacation location. Someone who rents it is from California. That payment actually goes from California straight to New York. It doesn't quite touch here. So I have no subpoena ability to kind of
occupancy tax or,
you know what I'm saying? So it's and then if I'm not gonna go knock on doors anyone here today, you know what I'm saying? You know, I can look at the website and see it's booked, but someone may say, oh, I booked it because my family member wanted to visit.
So now in our shop, and Director O'Neill, we're all a part of this conversation of people who owe the government. We've been talking about paying people who we owe, but then we have that other side of the coin. So just recently, we published our delinquencies going back to 1979. And there are millions and millions of dollars that are owed. Now, we have a mechanism. So we had a lot of people respond. We had them enter into payment plans. We can move to the place of auctioning properties to bring the cash collections to the government. What about your delinquencies? How do you...
Mine is tough because we have a disclosure rule. We can't very well put taxpayer information out there, especially saying you owe government. So that's my, you know, and I get it, you know, we're mirror code, we follow the IRS, that's their rules. You know, I don't want to say, well, it's, you know, they just tell me what to do, but I respect the privacy mechanism with all of that. I mean, in your case, you guys publish your delinquency, so I don't know if the same fallout happens, but for whatever reason, I guess, you know.
Well, in our case, we are specifically directed by law to publish delinquent, they're listed by, not by name, but parcel numbers.
See, for us, we would have to put the name, but we can't very put the social.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So there is a specific challenge.
Yeah, as far as the public, you know, we can do some public stuff for one or two and use them as an example, and if the news picks it up and says, guess what happened, then that happens. I may encourage folks to kind of follow suit, but you know, we don't have a publishing mechanism to out anybody.
All right, good. Now, we also, you know, we have been focusing on the refunds, but other payments. The administration is making good on other payments to the residents of the territory as well. And I have had a lot of conversation with people in the community who are very appreciative of that happening. So in the instance of the 8%, that's how it's referred to.
Right.
And although that was paid out a few months back, right? We don't want to let that disappear from people's minds as well, because again, there was a major financial commitment and challenge for the government.
Absolutely.
So I just want to share my experience. I went into the legislature I was elected in 2012. sworn in 2013. And so that first year, I was affected by the 8%. So I got a check as well for 1 year of the decrease in the legislative salaries. And I wanted to make sure that we talk about how the government met that obligation as well. And Director O'Neill, you want to share some light on it?
Yeah, again, this was one of those things, again, same process. We budgeted for this. It was, again, a mandate. The governor wanted to make sure that we paid this. So as we look at our cash, every year, what we've been successful in doing is at the end or getting close to the end of every fiscal year, because we're continuously looking, we know that there's extra money people haven't spent. And so we can go back and ask for reappropriation of these dollars. And that was one of those things. I know the governor wanted to do it. We put that plan in place for how we're going to do that 8%. And same thing we've done now with the retro wages that we've begun to pay out. You have to budget for everything and make it a priority to make those payments.
Okay, and I really want to talk a little bit more about that because I was so pleased with the process of just going online and typing in my name and employee number and finding out it had already been calculated. But we're gonna talk a little bit more about it. This is a very popular program, you see, so we have commercials and stuff like that. So we're gonna go to a break and then we'll be back. Please stay with us for the remainder of our conversation.
Babe, I got a medicine. I'm on my way home now. They also have some Alcalado, so I picked that up too.
Wait, did you get the right one? You know Kyra likes the grape flavor better, and she's so fussy right now.
Yes, Jay, I got the grape flavor. I also called Ma, and she said to wipe her face with a cool rag until I got home.
All right, babe. Hopefully, we can all get some sleep tonight.
I know, right? Kyra will be okay, babe. I'll be home in 2 minutes.
Wait, is that the seatbelt alert? Why aren't you wearing your seatbelt?
Man, Jay, don't start. The seatbelt ain't that big of a deal. I didn't see any police on the road.
You know that makes me nervous. Tickets aren't the only problem with not wearing a seatbelt.
I'm right around the corner.
Buckle up. It's your life. It's our law. This message is brought to you by the Virgin Islands Office of Highway Safety.
We're expecting a strengthening storm as it makes landfall. The right side.
Hey, babe. I listened to the radio and they said it's stopping strong.
Well, the house and laptop and all the shutters tomorrow. Should probably go check on anybody.
Okay, I think that's a good idea.
Alright, let's go. So you don't know we don't bring our roof, we take care of everything we need to take care of?
Oh, we gotta check on Becca.
Oh, what you done to? Rebecca! You good?
Oh, hi. I'm okay.
We know you're expecting soon, we come to check on you.
Yes, I talked to my doctor. We have a plan.
Okay, no problem, man.
Take care. Bye.
Miss Carmen, you good?
Yeah, there's somebody come and check on me.
All right, take care. Michelle. Evening. You ready for tonight? I know you went through a hard time last year with a hurricane, you know? If you want, you can come and stay away.
You know, I'm feeling nervous, so I'm gonna come tough it out for you, okay?
The U.S. Virgin Islands are in a region with high levels of vulnerability and threats for tsunamis. Here's some tips you should know. Listen for the sirens. It is important to understand the difference between an advisory, a watch, a warning, and an information statement.
If you're in a coastal zone area and notice a dramatic recession in water from the shoreline, move inland immediately and do not return until officials say it's safe to do so.
A tsunami can happen at any given moment, often without notice. Know your map and the nearest evacuation route and stay in the know.
Stay informed, stay prepared, and stay vigilant. Visit Vitema's website at vitema.vi.gov for more preparedness tips.
The more we know, the more we grow.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us, or if you're now joining us for this conversation about the fiscal health of the government of the Virgin Islands with Internal Revenue Director, Mr. Joe Lee, Finance Commissioner Bosedi Bruce, and Office of Management and Budget Director Jennifer O'Neill. Director O'Neill, we were ending the last segment talking about other payments besides the tax refunds that the government is making good on for the people of the Virgin Islands. And I was commending you because I think it was finance. You always send out the checks, but you just went online. You know, you put in your name, it was already calculated what your payment would be, and then it was paid out.
Yeah.
Now, I worked for the Department of Education. In 1995, I joined the Department of Education. And as the legal counsel, I was a part of the negotiating team. And from then, we were talking about this retroactive money owed to the government of the Virgin Islands. That was 27 years ago.
Yes.
And I really think people are out there saying, you're making good on an obligation. It's the people's money. Why are you bragging about it as an accomplishment? But I think it's a major deal to be paying people monies that were owed them. And I'm talking 95. I know it was owed before 95.
Exactly.
I'm just giving you the date of my experience. So I just wanted us to talk a little about that because I know that I worked with people at the Department of Education who were owed money, who are now deceased. They died before they could get a penny of this money.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So tell us about how we made this happen.
In addition to having the cash or being able to see where we would have some surplus that we could then use to make these payments. And interestingly enough, both things are roughly about the same $50 million each. Looking at that though, the Division of Personnel did an amazing job of getting that ease of putting your name in and having everything calculated. That the Division of Personnel and Director Richardson and her team really made that easy for people to be able to go in and do that and know exactly what is owed, so you know exactly what you're going to get, what to expect. That process, like you, I've gotten a lot of compliments from a number of seniors and retirees in the community who have thanked the administration for getting them these payments that they thought they would never ever see. So, yes, there are some who will say, yeah, it's an election gimmick. It really is not. It took time, it took dedication from this team and others who aren't here with us today, who have, made it their mission to ensure that these payments that are owed to the people of the Virgin Islands get paid. It was a major task for us to be able to do that and to find the monies to make it happen in this first term. Within 3.5 years, it's...
And I appreciate that, and I'm glad that you pointed out some of the other agencies that were involved in making this happen. I have had that question, Commissioner Bruce, about when you issue checks for people who are deceased. What happens?
Right.
Just for the public's.
So what they do, their surviving family members can go to the Department of Personnel website, dopusvi.org, and they can see the information that they need to submit so that they can get the payout from their deceased loved one. So once DOP and Department of Finance got together to process the payments, they go in, and there are some that we already have information from prior retro or 8% payments where they pull out those deceased employees. But other than that, everything else was paid out. And sometimes we get mail back, and that's when we know that someone was deceased. Someone will write on the mail form or whatever. So we just need for the survivors, even if you think that your loved one would have had a payout, go dopusvi.org, and they can look to see.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, we're getting close to the end of the program, and so we also just wanted to take a few minutes to look at some frequently asked questions that were submitted. So one caught my eye, and it has to do with transparency, because that comes up all the time in our public conversations. How do we know that they're actually telling us what's really happening? How can we verify some of this data for ourselves? So tell us a little about transparency.gov, which it's the website that you can go to. I think it might come up on the screen. Transparency.gov.
Transparency.vi.gov, actually. And it is a website that is administered by OMB, Department of Finance, and the Bureau of Information Technology. Legally, we are the three entities per the legislation that are required to put this up. We have a contractor that is working on the site as we speak. Should have it finished shortly. It is active. You can see central government information. You can see some data from the legislature. But at the end, hopefully by the end of this year, we will have all of the departments and agencies and every semi-autonomous agency, as well as the legislature and the courts, should be on the site per the law, showing everything that's happening. So it's tying into their accounting systems, and it's pulling that data out. It's not something that you are manipulating manually. It's an electronic pull from each entity's accounting system onto the website. So you're seeing the transactions as they have occurred. It's nothing
that you would have to... It's not somebody picking and choosing.
You're not picking and choosing anything.
What info to enter.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Now, I promise you, Commissioner Bruce, I was coming to the question of wrapping up. So, this has been such a fantastic conversation. I want to talk a little bit more about human capital.
Right.
And you could tell us maybe people who are interested, young people out there who might want a career, they see you as so dynamic, they want to follow in your footsteps. And just in your closing remarks to our guests, tell us a little.
Absolutely. Real quick, we have the GVI Fellows Program. We are always seeking applicants for that. Please reach out to us. Our website is omb.vi.gov. The fellows, you can go to the Division of Personnel's website, dopusvi.org, and you will be able to see the numerous jobs that are posted. We all are seeking persons to come in and help us. I have a dynamic team now at OMB, young people. I need some more, so please join us.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, Director Lee, any closing remarks?
Yeah, well, once again, we're at a very good place in the territory with refunds being caught up, and I look forward to the growth that we can now really dedicate the resources to really, put us at a good place. I'm very grateful to, be able to be a part of this team, for sure.
Thank you. Yeah. And Commissioner Bruce?
I'll piggyback on what my colleague stated. We do need people to come in and apply. We are working on being in a better place. We are not only making those cash disbursements, we are investing in our software, we are investing in process improvement. I am very big on electronic and paperless processes. We're working on a central payment system so people can sit from their home and go online and pay for everything and anything in the government. So we are going to be in a better place once we get past everything with the pandemic or now the endemic. But we are
thank you so
moving
much.
In the right place.
And thank you for the reminder. That you can we're still in the vaccine administration process. Remember, the COVID vaccine is now available for children 6 months or 4 years old. You can call the Department of Health to schedule your pediatric vaccine appointment, or you can go to COVID19usvi.com, because we are still making sure that our people continue to be safe. And I live my life from a place of gratitude. So I really want to thank each of you. I know we don't hear it often, but I want to thank each of you for the work that you do, because I know you spend sleepless hours. I know you spend many hours sitting and pondering, how do we move forward? How do we keep on the right fiscal on the right fiscal page? And so I want to thank each of you for the work that you do, because our community and our residents are the beneficiaries of your good work, and we could not be at this place without the commitment and the labor that you put into making this work. Thank each and every one of you for joining us for this program, and we're going to have more fantastic episodes about the Press Box to keep you informed about the works of our government. Have a great evening.